Iceland is bracing for a possible volcanic eruption, forcing thousands to evacuate, and it's also causing a bit of panic there, too. Since late October, tens of thousands of earthquakes have been reported in the southwestern part of the country, causing fissures and craters to form in the earth. You're looking at video of some of that, including seeping steam coming from the ground. Officials say the increased seismic activity indicates a significant likelihood of a volcanic eruption in the coming days. But that's not the only volcano capturing headlines this week, with plumes of smoke also spotted in Japan and Russia. In fact, 19 volcanoes are erupting at the very same time. But it left us wondering, is all of this normal? Joining us live now with some insight is Andy Calvert, scientist in charge of the USGS California Volcano Observatory. Andy, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So the big question, 19 volcanic eruptions, is that a lot or is that normal when it comes to volcanic activity?
It's pretty normal. I mean, the Earth is a heat engine, and it's got a few different ways for volcanoes to erupt. And typically, at any given time, there will be 10, 20, 30, 40 volcanoes erupting around the world. It's a continuous process. Sometimes we get more that are sort of around civilization and around people. But it's really just sort of a continuous, typical event.
It's just a part of life on this thing that we call Earth, huh? So I guess I guess you're saying that it would be unusual if we didn't see multiple volcanoes erupting at the same time. You mentioned upwards of 30 volcanoes erupting at certain parts in our history.
Yeah, typically we have multiple volcanoes erupting at any time in Alaska. Currently, there are, I think, 2 or 3 that are at elevated color codes. Hawaii is not currently erupting, but it could very, very soon. Etna is one of the most active volcanoes on Earth, and it's currently erupting as well.
The video that we're showing from Etna right now, it's absolutely gorgeous to take a look at. Can you explain the connection between volcanoes and earthquakes and how they're related? We talked about it a little bit with what's happening in Iceland right now, but break down that connection for us if you can.
Well, there are a lot of different sorts of earthquakes. We obviously get them mostly, say, along the San Andreas Fault in California, and that's where one of the large lithospheric plates is grinding past another one, and those cause earthquakes. But when magma rises up toward the surface, it breaks a lot of rock on its way up, and those are earthquakes as well. They're somewhat different in character. But that's one of the main ways we use to monitor active volcanoes is we watch for earthquakes, especially around our known volcanoes, and they tell us kind of where the magma is and whether it's coming up to the surface or not.
And then that's when we would see that eruption, that gorgeous orange glow that we often see when earthquakes erupt.
Yeah, often, though, is the key word, really, because sometimes the magma gets very close to the surface and doesn't erupt. It's very possible that this event that's going on in Iceland won't culminate in an eruption. The scientists there are really top-notch, and they're keeping an eye on it. They're very used to these sorts of eruptions in Iceland, and typically, there have been over the last few years a number of eruptions nearby where this one is looking like it's going to happen. But there are times when the magma gets very close to the surface and stalls and freezes as well.
Speaking of the situation there in Iceland, we know that there are some towns that are being evacuated near that volcano, and also warnings of possible, and we do want to stress possible, disruptions to flight activity. What should people know?
Well, yeah, so there are typically in Iceland when there are the lava typically comes out in as fountains, similar to what you're seeing at Etna right now. You'll have orange rock coming out. And it doesn't go high up into the air, and so flights can easily be diverted around it. Sometimes when it interacts with water or ice, you can actually get a significant amount of ash up in the air, and it can affect aircraft. It did that in Europe, 8 or 10 years ago. Um, the best thing really is to pay attention, to listen to what the geologists, the government volcanologists are telling everybody to do, and just to keep your safe distance.
Okay, great advice right there. Andy Calvert, scientist in charge of the USGS California Volcano Observatory. We really appreciate your time and explaining all of this for us. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome anytime.
All right.